start now the Maimer Hayosheves Baganim. And as we said earlier, if we can put our own idea to what's going on, the Maimer Basi Legani is giving us our mission statement, and the Maimer Hayosheves Baganim perhaps is telling us how to do it. In our generation, in our time, with our issues that we deal with, and the Rebbe is giving us in a very short Maimer what it's all about and how we do it. And the Rebbe starts the following: Hayosheves Baganim Chaverim Makshivim, which means Hayosheves Baganim, she who sits in the gardens in the plural. Chaverim Makshivim Lekoilech, the friends are listening to your voice. The Frierdiker Rebbe brings about this two ways of understanding it, and as the Rebbe points out, these seem to be opposites. Two seemingly polar opposite meanings in the Pasuk. Opposite, not just in their understanding, but opposite in the entire content. Let's look at the two explanations. Explanation number one is Hayosheves Baganim. Ganim means Olam Hazeh, this physical world. This world down here, which is called Ganim. Now, although the Rebbe doesn't specify this, but perhaps the reason it's called Ganim in plural is because the world down here is a place of plurality. The world down here is a Reshus HaRabim. It's a place where it's not connected to the oneness of Hashem. More than that, it's not just Hayosheves Baganim, someone who's in this world, but at Knesset Yisrael, the Jewish people who are spread all over, and that's perhaps also the idea of the plural Ganim, spread and scattered in Galus, and Roya Beganim Shalachedim, forced to be involved with foreign gardens. So the Ganim, the gardens, which garden, as we learned in Basi Legani, Gan means pleasure. The pleasure in this case, the pleasure in this situation means involved in pleasures other than Hashem, galus, scattered, locked up, where our spark, where our neshama is not revealed. We're all over the place. And yet, we, Knesset Yisrael, you, Knesset Yisrael, who's sitting, who's settled, who lives, who's there in those gardens, that's our reality. The gardens where we're spread and scattered all over the place, not in the best place, not in the unity, not in the oneness of Hashem. And we tear ourselves away from it. And we go into shul, and we go into Beis Medrash. Now, as we'll see in the continuation of the Maimer also, and as is obvious over here, the Hayosheves, the place where we are, our existence, is not in the good place, not in the oneness, in galus, scattered, locked up. But yet, wherever we can, when we're able to, we try, we work on it, we tear ourselves away from that existence to go to the real existence of learning Torah, davening, saying Shema. Says Hashem, Chaverim Makshivim Lekoilech. The Chaverim, the angels, the Malachi Asharis. Why are they called Chaverim? Why are they called Chaverim? Friends. Whose friends are they? They're not our friends. They're not the friends of the neshamas down here. On the contrary, they are a totally opposite entity. They're Chaverim. They're not in Ganim. They're not in a place of plurality. They're not in a place which is separate from the oneness. They're Chaverim. They're connected. They don't have sinah. They don't have hate. They don't have kinna. They don't have jealousy. They don't have tachras. They don't have competition. They're malachim. They're angels. They're in a different world than us. And yet, these Chaverim, these malachim, who in their existence there's oneness, they're makshivim lekoilech, they have to listen. And they have to hear the voice of the Jewish people who are down here, because the beauty of the Jew that's down here in the most tough situation of Ganim, of Galus, of plurality, and yet he separates himself and he says Hashem Echad. The beauty of that, the amazing wonders that creates, is something which even the Malachim, even the Chaverim, those who are in a purely idyllic spiritual existence, they want to hear it. They want to hear it. They want to know about it. They want to hear those voices because that's something amazing for them. That's the first explanation. So let's look first at the second explanation, then we can see at the differences, not just the differences, but how they are so total opposites. Hayosheves Baganim. Ganim, the garden, means Gan Eden. Why is a garden? Why is Gan Eden called the garden? We learned this in the last member, we spoke about it, that a garden means the pleasure in the lakus, the recognition, the enjoyment of godliness. And we're not just talking about Gan, one garden. We're talking about Ganim, plural. 2 levels of Gan Eden, because we're not just sufficing with Gan Eden Hatachten, the lower level of Gan Eden, but Ganim, it's both the lower and the higher level of Gan Eden. Hayosheves Baganim, the Gan, the enjoyment, the pleasure that we're talking about is the ultimate, the highest level of Gan Eden, not just Gan Eden Hatachten, but even Gan Eden Elyon, the Neshamas, who are no longer in this world, who are connected to the highest possible place. Chavedim, they are friends. Whose friends are they in this situation? They are our friends. Chavedim, they are the friends of the neshamas that are still down here, and makshivim lekoilech, they are friends of the neshamas down here and listening to the voice of the neshamas down here as they learn Torah and daven. Why? So let's see in a moment the idea of why they're called friends. But let's first look at the 2 explanations. Both concepts are that when we learn Torah, when we do mitzvahs down here, the spiritual entities up above listen to us. But while in the first explanation, the Gan, the pleasure, is in the lowest, furthest, most separate place from the reality of godliness. To the extent that those Chaverim have nothing to do with us. They are in the total opposite world. But yet there's something great about what we do in our world down here. The other explanation is that the Gan, the pleasure, is actually up there in Gan Eden Elyon, in the highest place possible. And the neshamas from up there, the reason why they listen to what we do down here is because there's a connection between us. What's the connection between us? And here the Rebbe explains, the Frierdiker Rebbe explains that the reason why there's a connection is because lefamim neshama min neshama netzeles. Sometimes one neshama comes from another neshama. What does it mean, comes from another neshama? So the Rebbe emphasizes that we use the word atzilus. And with this the Rebbe says, let's continue on what we said in Basi Legani. In Basi Legani, that we learned earlier, the Rebbe explained that why is it called atzilus? Because it's Giluy Ha'elam. Atzilus means it's not a separate entity. It's merely a continuation, a revelation of the earlier entity. And that's why the world can't be here for the world of Atzilus, because Atzilus is just a continuation of the spiritual world. There's nothing new. There's no purpose in it. On the contrary, it went down. And that's what was explained in the Maimer Basi Legani, that the purpose of the creation is for this world down here, for the physical world, for a new entity. That's on one hand. That's what we explained in the Maimer, which explains the purpose. But when we're explaining how to do it, how do we enable our neshamas that are down here to connect to the neshamas up there? And the Rebbe tells us that's by realizing that really we are one direct continuation of it. Sure, the purpose of creation is that there should be a physical existence, a separate existence where we reveal godliness. But what we do in order that we can reveal godliness in ourselves is we realize that we are merely a revelation of the neshama that's up there. Now it's amazing because the Rebbe is bringing this neshama mi neshama netzeles. Neshama mi neshama netzeles is something which is said in the Maina Lashon when being mishtateach by the oil of a tzaddik, especially by the oil of a Rebbe. And with this it's also explaining the idea of the connection between a chassid and a Rebbe, even a Rebbe who's already in a more spiritual world, and yet the connection is there not just as a connection, as a chibur, as a iskashrus. The connection is there in a way of atzilus, where we are merely revealing that which is the essence, which is concealed, which is there in the Rebbe. Which means our entity and our existence is merely only to fulfill and to reveal that which is there in the more spiritual worlds. So, that's how we do it. When we connect, when we realize, I'm not me, I'm an extension of Rebbe. My existence of who I am is an extension of what the Rebbe is. There's a famous story which is told about the Alter Rebbe at the time when there was the War of Napoleon. And the Alter Rebbe turned to one of the Chassidim and he said to him, please do me a favor. I left my hat and my kapata in a different house. Please go to that house in order to get it for me. And so the Chassid said to the Rebbe, there's shooting, there's killing, there's a war going on in the streets. How can I go over to that place through the war zone? The Alter Rebbe said, don't worry. Just put on my hat and kapata and everything will be fine. And the Chassid later said he felt as if he's not there. The Rebbe's hat and kapata are walking in the street. In a sense, that's what a Chassid is, someone whose entire existence is revealing Rebbe in the world. His entire existence is, there's a Rebbe, and I'm connected to him. Not just connected, but netzeles. My neshama is in fact only here to reveal the essence which is there hidden in the Rebbe. Now, take now those two aspects, and it's mind-boggling and amazing because this is who we are and what we are in the world. We live in a world, we exist in a constant existence on one hand, where we are in the world, as we said earlier, of total plurality. We live in a world where we're in Gullus, where when we're lucky, we manage to tear ourselves away from that world for a few moments to go to a shul. That's on one hand. That's our existence. On the other hand, we say that even the malachim are jealous. They want to hear the voice of that Torah. The malachim are in the totally opposite world. And we explain it through saying a totally opposite idea that in essence, really what we are is an extension to the extent that it's not even a separate existence. We're an extension of the neshamas that are up there, or even deeper than that, of the neshamas of our Rabbeim and of the neshama of the Rebbe. We are an extension. That's all we are. That's our entire existence. Now, because that's our entire existence, now we're going to explain in the Maimer how it's possible and how we can do it, that we should be in the world, in the physical world, and realize that our entire existence in this world is a world which is a higher, deeper world. Two opposite ideas, but that it's really one. That's what the Rebbe is going to explain in the Maimer. That's what we're going to understand, how we can do it, how we can live in our time. a time when we're dealing with what we're dealing, and yet we can realize and be connected to the oneness of Hashem in the world.